welcome to the live Wednesday show on This is Ibrox. I'm your host, Kyle McLean, and as always, I'm joined by two fantastic guests. Firstly, Ian Mitchell, how are you doing today?
Very good, mate. Yeah, obviously a very stressful time for all of us with the lack of confirmations we've seen these last few days, but no, glad to be here.
What's days like today like? Is it like with the amount of rumours floating about? Is this like a real life Football Manager day for you?
Every day is, to be fair. I mean, I play that game. But no, it really is just a kind of, it's more checking sources, I think, has been the last few days for me. Like, you see these rumours, you see all these like chat, seeing who the kind of big names are talking about moving. So that's why I'm kind of pigeon focused on at this point.
Well, that's that exactly. So always checking where those rumours come from to see how reliable they are. And Ross, I know you've been away sunning yourself at the weekend. How are you recovered after your weekend and looking forward to chatting about Rangers again?
Nah, I've not recovered. I'll just lie. I won't lie about it. So, but I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this. Obviously, we've seen a lot of rumours today. So I'm the same as Ian. I just want some confirmations. I just want things over the line at this point. There's, the deadline's on Friday, so Rangers have a lot to do. There's a lot of good stuff going on, as it seems at the moment. So let's hope we get a few more bodies in, get them over the line, and we can kick on and have a good season.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we can quell some of your fears that 2 days isn't enough, but I'm sure we'll get onto that as the pod goes on. But listen, on today's show, as always, there's loads to talk about as the Scottish transfer window grows closer to closing. We'll discuss the rumours over the past few days, and unfortunately they are just rumours at the minute, but we'll chat about the outgoings to begin with. Cantwell looks like he's away to Blackburn. Hagi turning down a move to Rapid Bucharest. Blackburn also cooling down their links to Matondo, and Rangers apparently rejected a loan move for him to Norwich as well. Scott Wright looks close to joining Ben Davies at Birmingham. Want to get the guys' thoughts on what should be done with players like Divine, King, Lowry as well. I've seen there's been a couple of links in the last week to those guys too, and been loads of rumours, especially the past few days about incomings. We've got Ibrahim Adel, Jeremy Sarmiento, Bajrami and Stanley Nsoki, who've all been rumoured to have been joining Rangers in the small matter of the old firm at the weekend. I managed to get all that out as well. But listen, we'll begin with yourself, Ross. The news, it looks like, I can't believe it, the Rangers look like they've managed to find a buyer for Todd Cantwell, somebody who they actively said doesn't want to be at the club, and we don't want him at the club. Rumoured to be around 600k. You and I have waxed lyrical about many a time in the gantry. Firstly, how are you going to be if and when Todd Cantwell leaves, and what do you make of the Cantwell saga finally looking like it's ending at Rangers?
Well, I have to say I'm probably over it now. Than you. I think we've all expected this day to come for a couple of months, so I'm probably past that point of being disappointed about losing Todd Cantwell. I think I'm like the rest of the support now. I just kind of want him out the door. You can't really have a player like that sitting, and I was going to say the academy. He's not even sitting in the academy. He's not doing anything. He's training himself. So when I heard the fee earlier, I was a little bit disappointed. Initially, 600 grand. I think we can all say Todd Cantwell, when he's playing at his best, is worth way more than that. But unfortunately, this is just what happens. You're coming towards the end of a transfer window. Like we said at the start, there's only 2 days to go, and clubs get desperate. And we are desperate at this point. We have to let him go, And if Blackburn are coming to the table, they're taking advantage of that and saying, we'll give you 500, 600 grand to take him. Then, Rangers have just got to accept that, and they've got to move on because of the wages that Todd Cantwell's on. So, yeah, it's a disappointing end for Cantwell. I think we could all see the quality he had. I think at times he lacked the consistency, but you could say that about a lot of the players in our squad at the moment. So that's unfortunate, but I'm not convinced he's handled, this situation in the best way during the summer. I think he could screwed the head. He could have tried to contribute at the start of the season, and he could have made some sort of deal with the club to say if a bid comes in, can I go? And I think everyone would have been accepting of that and would have understood his reasons. I mean, Clont touched on that in his press conference the other day about, it's not necessarily just Rangers. He doesn't really want to be in Scotland anymore, which you can understand. Sometimes people want to move back home, whatever. So, yeah, look, it's a disappointing end to Todd Cantwell's career. I think at Rangers, he probably should have had a lot more success here, but ultimately I'm at that point now. I just want to move them on. I just want to get someone else in that actually wants to play for the club. I'm not really interested in any players that don't want to be here. I just get them out as quickly as possible. And I think at this stage, we're probably a little bit desperate for that 600 grand accepted bit. But look, you look at it, that's 25 grand roughly off the wage bill as well. And that's a major positive for us for someone that's not contributing. So, yeah, disappointing, but we'll just have to accept that this is the way his Rangers' career's ending, and hopefully we bring someone in that can, kick on even more than Cantwell could here.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few comments here, Ian, I'm just read out before I come to you and get your thoughts on it. But Andrew Cleland says, brilliant news in Cantwell. Luke Gibson says 600k is nuts. CGM55 says 600k is chicken feed for a player of Cantwell's ability. It is excellent money for a player with Cantwell's attitude and wages. Hugo Bear also here says Cantwell was an exceptional but wasted talent. Where do you lie in the whole Cantwell situation? Are you happy that he's finally gone? Are you thinking like me in terms of I'm actually a bit stunned we've even managed to get 600 grand for him? I just thought it would have been a off you pop to a new club and see you later.
Yeah, there's a few of the comments that I'm kind of agreeing with here in terms of the player ability-wise is not a 600k player. You'd want 10 times that for someone of his actual football ability, his natural ability, the pressing side of his game's good, all those kind of things. You're talking £1 million, multi-million-pound player. It's the mental side of it, which has deteriorated Cantwell's value so much. And I don't think we've helped ourselves too much with this. Clement's comments, obviously, probably about a month, 6 weeks ago now, maybe, saying that he was done with the club, we were going to sell him. That just plummets that fee straight away. So we have kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit. But the main thing, as Ross touched on, get the wages off the books, get some kind of fee. There was talk of Cantwell going on loan at first, so you have to imagine there was some kind of small fee and maybe pay some of the wages. So if we've been able to kind of restructure that, get a complete sale, just be done with it at this point, because I don't think any of us in a year's time want to see Cantwell back after a loan and we're back in the same circle. So cut that tie. As a fan, it is disappointing because I think he could have done so much better up here. At times, he was one of our star players. He was the guy we all wanted in that number 10 position. He got in that position and he was fairly successful. He was a decent player at times. But yeah, at this point, he's not going to get near the team. Get rid of it, and hopefully that money can be reimbursed into a new number 10 or number 6, whatever kind of argument we're going to go into at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, it's sort of something we've said quite a lot in the pods. Get a player out to replace him with someone that can contribute, can affect things. And by the talk we've had the last couple of hours, it seems like we're moving quite fast on that.
Yeah, I know you're saying there that you don't know anybody that would want Todd Cantwell back. I can think of somebody, and he's just sitting in the opposite side of the screen to yourself. But yeah, look, there's a few comments coming in here. Sharpie Staunch says, I think Cantwell spits the dumb out too much, and that's his problem. And CGM55 says he will go to Blackburn, be excellent for 6 months, and then fall out with everyone, someone and everyone. But yeah, there seems to be a bit of a pattern here developing with Todd Cantwell. That's 2 clubs he's been at where they have been willing to take a massive hit, unexpected, transfers, and just to get rid of him. So yeah, maybe time to have a look at himself. But it's a shame it's ended the way it was, because I think we can all appreciate the player that Cantwell was. But like Rangers, you're not getting a player for that with that talent for that money if there's no problems there. Ian, I'll come to you in this next question here, and it is about Janis Hagi. It's pretty clear that he's surplus to requirements within Rangers, or certainly from Philippe Clement's perspective. He's put a statement out on Instagram basically saying he'll do what it takes to stay at the clubs. He's never said he wanted to leave the club. It got a lot of positive reaction yesterday as well, but it's come to light that before the Euros, he did say this, and I'm just going to read this so I don't mince the words up here or whatever, but he says, my focus is on the Euros. I had talks with my agents and the pressure is on them. They know what I want for my future. It's a pretty important summer for me from all points of view. I've told them that before going to the national team what I wanted. I expected them to work as well as possible to find the right team and the right manager for me. That doesn't sound to me like a guy that's said that he doesn't want to leave Rangers. What's your thoughts on the Hagi situation?
Yeah, Hagi's a very clever player on the pitch. I think he's an even smarter player off the pitch. the way this is all played out. All the negative comments about the club and about how Ianis has been treated and all this kind of stuff have always came from his agent or his dad. And now that it's a kind of total 180 on that stance, it's oh no, I'm here to fight for the team, here to fight for the manager, help the fans, blah, blah. That's came from the player himself, which, as you said, got a lot of positive traction, got a lot of people thinking, oh yeah, he's back, he can contribute, which I think he can. Like, Hagi's a good player. He's been, I wouldn't say he's been missed as such, but someone with that creativity has been missed at times already this season, so I can see him coming back in and having a good effect, but it is pretty clear to me that he's thought he could get better, maybe not better than Rangers as such, but he could get a top five league team, I should say. Stick to the kind of money he's on, go away and play every week, and it's just not materialised that way at all. If the chat is to be believed, his best offer was from Romania. I think the wages were less than half of what he's on at us, so no one in their right mind is going to take that. Like, I'm not going to leave my job for half the wages. I'm sure no one in the chat would either, so I can see why he's turned that down, but I think a little bit of arrogance pre-Euros about the team he could get. What were you going to say, sorry?
I said I'll take it. Personally, I would take a move to Rapid Bucharest. If somebody came along and offered me a move to Rapid Bucharest, see you later, I'm off to Romania, boys.
That's fair. But no, as I say, it's one of those ones where I think he's thought he would get a good move and be able to just kind of cut his ties with Rangers, and it's just not happened. So I think, as I say, it's at this point he can come back in. I'm sure he can feature. But I think it is just a bit of try to save face a little bit with that post yesterday.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Look, there's lots of comments that have come in that are agreeing with you there, Ian. CGM55 says Hagi obviously hasn't found anywhere else better. William 01 says, why has Hagi just come out with a statement? Because nobody wants him, that's why. Luke Gibson says, desperate for that pay rise. Ross, I'm going to phrase it slightly different to yourself. And Spinner, I'll just say Spinner VR for the sake of it, says, do you know what's happening with Hagi? Because I really want him in the first team. What a great player. So it's not been confirmed, but it's rumoured to be that if Hagi plays an extra game for Rangers, that he gets a bump in his paycheck. I think that's £2-3 grand a week or something like that, which is about £350,000-400,000 over the space of a year. Say some agreement could come between Rangers and Hagi to negate that pay rise. Is he a player that you would want to see integrated back into the squad, or is it a case of Clement's already made his mind up? See you later.
Oh, this is a tough one, to be honest. I think it's really difficult when the manager's kind of made his assessment of a player. I think it's quite clear that Philippe Clement really doesn't fancy Janis Hagi. I'd imagine that conversation during the summer that they had with Hagi and his representative would have been pretty quick. You know, Clement probably said, I don't really fancy, I don't really see having a future here. And I would imagine Ianis and his representative said, we don't see our future here either. So I'm not really sure if there's a comeback from that. The other side of it is if Janis Hagi doesn't find a move before the end of the deadline, then I find it difficult to accept someone being on that much money. And also we know that there is a player in there. Is it someone that's good enough to start week in, week out for Rangers? No, he's not. And actually, Janis Hagi's time here, he's never really been that. So we can't really rewrite history on this one. But I would like to think that the club could come together with his representatives, get rid of that clause, and at least have him in around it, even if that is just till January. And it just gives us another option. It gives Janis Hagi the ability to show what he's got, really, and put himself in the shop window for a move in January. I'm fine with that. If Rangers get the benefit of, Janis Hagi playing well, I'm fine with that. So, yeah, it's a difficult situation. I'm split on this one. I seen Janis Hagi's post last night, and actually, when I initially read it, I thought, that
great post.
Yeah, I did honestly. Initially, I thought, Janis Hagi's showing a really good attitude this summer. He's came back. He's accepted. He's in with the B team. And he's kept himself fit, and he's shown really good attitude in those games and things like that. But I think sometimes it shows you that we all get caught up in these things, because I did forget about the comments he'd made before the Euros. And once you read those, you're like, okay, well, you really didn't see your future here, actually. What Janis Hagi needs to do is he needs to sack his agent, right? Simple as that. He's absolutely failed him, completely failed him. He's came out, he's saying he's going here, he's going there, he's got loads of interest, and he's sitting at Rangers 2 days before the deadline, right? So I think Janis Hagi needs to take a look at who's representing them and get rid, because they're obviously not doing the right thing for him. That would be the first thing I said. I'd obviously probably say his dad probably needs to keep quiet as well, because he's not helping him. So, you know, that all of this around him doesn't help Janis Hagi. But yeah, the other side of it, him coming out now and saying, you know, I want to fight for Rangers, I want to stay here. You know, well, I don't know if you did a couple of weeks ago. You're maybe just a bit desperate at this point. But at the same time, if Rangers can't move the player on, then they need to try and utilise him at least till January, I think. But that clause is very important. He obviously said in a statement last night that, you know, if both sides could, you know, show their intent to do that, then they can obviously get round the table and they can fix it. Now, it depends. Rangers might be using that clause as an excuse not to bring him back. They might just be like, do you know what? Now we're not really interested. You're not coming back, because if you play that clause, it's triggers. So, look, it sounds a bit messy behind the scenes, but ultimately, I think we can all agree Janis Hagi is a pretty good player. And probably some of that quality in and around the club would help us at times. You know, he could certainly contribute. So, if he's here, I'd like to think we try and integrate him, whether that's Philippe Coulon, at least being honest and saying, look, your chances are still going to be limited, but we'll have you in and around it, and we'll let you go in January. That's fine. But yeah, it's a tricky situation. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I think what I would say is the best thing I still think is for Janis Hagi to go, even if that's another loan move again, and someone takes the salary for us for 6 months to a year and he moves on again. I think that's probably the way this should work out, but it's going to be interesting to see how it develops.
Well, that's it. Listen, there's basically what you said there. Lots of comments reflecting that. A bit of mixed opinions. We got Hugo Bear here says Hagi would improve our team as he is better than Lawrence and Dow. Then you've got Kenny GBY says everyone entitled to the opinion on Hagi. For me, he's never been good enough for us and has really been more than a 6 out of 10, which is hard to disagree with both of those comments, to be honest with you, which is kind of strange. David Kerr says Hagi doesn't truly have the heart for us. He's a good kid, but his head lies elsewhere. Another wage for freeing up out. And I think we're all just waiting to see if Galatasaray came along. I think that would be the perfect match for everybody. But Jim Back's here. I think I brought this comment up when you were going on about it, but I think this is the most pertinent point in the whole situation. Hagi's been given the wrong advice from his dad and his agent. Add to that a little bit of greed, and that's why he won't play for us again. And I think that exactly sums the situation up. Next point here. I'll come to you on this one, Iain. It says it's about Scott Wright. Looking likely that he will be joining Ben Davies away down in Birmingham. Is this a good move for all involved? He's a guy, he's been at the club for a few years, never really taken his chance for me. And it just looks like another one that we are just shifting off the wage bill. And I've got this sneaky feeling that we will end up getting more money for Scott Wright than we will Todd Cantwell. There you go.
I think that's a very possible point, which is utterly insane when you consider the ability of the two players. See, to be honest, I've always felt quite bad for Scott Wright, because the main problem that we'll have with Scott Wright is that we have at times relied on Scott Wright, and he never came in to be that player. He always should have been the second, maybe even third choice player for the certain position he was in, whether it was left wing, right wing kind of thing. And he was always available, always did try his best, but it just he just overstayed his welcome, as so many other players have recently. And I'm quite happy to see him go at this point. Again, nothing against him as such. He's always, like I mentioned, tried his hardest, but he's just never been good enough. Like, my mind just goes back to that final last year. He's tried to trap a ball from 5 yards away, misses it, Celtic go up and score. And it just still stings how basic that was. And sorry to ruin everyone's night, by the way, but
yeah, look at our face, man.
I know. My heart just sank again. But it's just that kind of fact that he's just never been good enough. And I know he's had his fans. I think Ross is a fan of him. I want to say. I think he's got a wee soft spot for him. But he's just the kind of guy that he should never have been able to make the amount of appearances that he made over the. If you look at his stats, they're truly shocking. Like, I'm not a good footballer. I would get more goals and assists with the game time that Scott Wright has had than he managed to get over the last couple of years. So glad he's going on. I won't be fully happy until I see him holding that Birmingham shirt after the whole airport to Turkey issue last year. So touch wood a little bit on this one. But yeah, just again, like many others that we've seen leave so far this summer, just time was up, had to go.
Yeah, Blue Ranger 777 says, are we now Birmingham City's feeder club? That, them and Trabzonspor, I think, the two clubs that we've been keeping afloat this year. Keen55 says, I do feel bad for Scott Wright. He's there, he's just hardly in form. It's a shame, because with the right mindset, he could do it. Yeah, it's a difficult one, compared to the players that we've had in for the past, I don't know, how long Scott Wright been at Rangers? What, 4 years? Something, 4.5 years?
Yeah.
5 years.
So
he's largely been available given the rampant injuries that have ravaged the squad in those 5 years, and he's had plenty of chances, and he's just never really taken them. So yeah, I think it's a good move for all involved, and yeah, it's one of these ones we don't make. This is the transfers that we don't make money on. Even 750k, I think, would be a good bit of business for something like that, rather than just keeping him for another year and just letting him run his contract down. Ross, last one in terms of outgoing here, or sort of rumoured outgoings, and that's Rabbi Matondo, who obviously had a fantastic game at the weekend. There was interest from Blackburn Rovers, but they sort of done that gift thing where they've obviously been holding Rabbi Matondo's hand and then seen that Todd Cantwell's free and turned round and had a look at that. So they're now interested in Todd Cantwell, but again, there's a Norwich link. Apparently Rangers turned down a loan move. They inquired about Rabbi Matondo on loan. If you'd asked me 3 games ago, I'd have been driving Rabbi Matondo down to Norwich myself. But what do you make of these links? Is Rabbi Matondo now a guy that you would keep at Rangers?
No, I would still get rid of Rabbi Matondo, to be honest with you. I'm trying not to be too short term on this. He had a great game at the weekend, and he deserves credit for that, but we don't see that enough. And I think with the salary that Rabbi Matondo has, I think if someone was willing to come along and take that off us, and it would allow us to go bring someone in with better quality, then I would still be exploring that option. Is a loan move really something you're looking for, Rabbi Matondo, at this point? Maybe not, so I can understand why Rangers have rejected that, but I think if there was a permanent offer, what that fee would be, I don't know. We paid 2.5 million, so maybe you'd have to get that at least back, and I'm not really sure you're going to get that for Rabbi Matondo. So I would still be exploring the possibility of letting Rabbi Matondo go. Got to remember who we were up against at the weekend. Ross County have really started this season in a bad way, and Rangers can only beat who they're up against, so that takes nothing away from Rangers' performance. It was great, but Matondo doesn't do it enough. He's had plenty of opportunities now, so he would still be one that I would look at to move on, but maybe we're kind of past that stage with him. So I can see him sticking around. I can't see any more bids at this stage unless Norwich are going to come in and go, look, we're absolutely desperate to get him. Here's 3 million, 4 million. Then I would imagine Rangers would take it, to be honest with you, based on what salary is on. But yeah, I'm still not convinced my Matondo, and that might be a bit controversial after this performance at the weekend, but I just don't see enough from him. I just don't. Now, I say this all the time when I talk about players negatively. I really hope he proves me wrong. Actually, I hope he goes to Parkhead on Sunday and batters in a hat-trick, and I'll hold my hands up and say, yep, I was completely wrong about Rabbi Matondo, but I just don't know if you're going to see it. But look, you can only let's hope that performance at the weekends was a start. Let's hope we can build on that now, because that is something that has went against Rabbi Matondo at times. He doesn't maybe show enough consistency when he plays, but he also doesn't really get a run of games, whether that's managers taking him out or he picks up a knock and things like that. So let's see if we can get 5 or 10 games behind him on that left side, maybe covering for Cortez until he's back fit, and let's see if we can get even more out of Rabbi Matondo. But if you put a gun to my head and said, if a club comes in for 2 or 3 million and offers you it, I would take it for Matondo. I would move on.
Yeah, comments largely agreeing with you here. CGM55 says, get rid of Matondo. He's doing what he always does, plays well for a couple of games, and then he no doubt will get a knee injury. Hugo Bear says, if we receive a decent offer, Matondo is off. Hugster 0809 said, I'd offload Matondo ASAP. His wages are mental. And Kenny GBY says, was Matondo just putting himself in the shot window with that performance at the weekend? How often have we seen a performance like that? And I suppose that is the key is the consistency with Matondo. I'm sure Tommy said it on the podcast in the post-match that we did it at the weekend immediately after that game as well. But the thing for me is the manager came out and said that the players that were in the squad would be staying here, and that the players that were not in the squad would not be staying here. So that makes me think that Matondo might be one of the players that Clement still thinks he has.
I think it's fair to say that the manager likes Rabbi Matondo. I think he's made that clear since he came in, that he does like the player, and he was talking about trying to develop him and things. So it doesn't surprise me that the manager might want to keep him around. Sometimes it maybe goes above that, and they'll look at this, they'll assess the squad in terms of what money's going out, and they'll look at certain players and thinking that we might have to move them out to get others in. So maybe Rabbi Matondo falls into that kind of bracket of, here's the output, here's the financial commitment you've got for him. Is he worth that? So maybe it goes over and above what the manager thinks. But I do think Clement likes him. I really do. I think he likes what he brings to the party. He talks about that kind of ability to cut inside and finish. That's something that he has, and he doesn't show it enough. So it doesn't surprise me that the manager wants to keep him around. I just think it might be one of those that goes above him eventually, that he just accepts that there's a good enough bid and he moves on.
If you remember, there was that training video where the whole squad seemed to love Matondo. I think he was like everyone's best friend when that came out in pre-season. So I know that doesn't mean anything to us, but if you again look at Clement, you might see Matondo bringing people together, cheering people up, putting different cliques together and stuff like that. So there could be a million reasons that Clement does really want to keep Matondo around.
I'm going to pick you up on that. I think that is a fantastic point that you've just made right there, Ian. I was fortunate enough to be watching one of the days, the sort of 15, 20 minutes that you can watch the training before they go behind closed doors before one of the Europa League games. And Rabbi Matondo was last out onto the pitch, and everybody was just round about him having a good laugh. He was the one that it's clear that he keeps training fun, keeps it light. Do you know what I mean? Has a bit of a laugh. Maybe not. Maybe hopefully turns it on when training's getting a bit more serious, because I don't imagine Clement standing for that. But yeah, I think he is an important member to the group, and you see he's such a likable character. Every time he does interviews, you can't help but like the guy. But it's been levelled at Rangers before that we've had too many nice guys and not enough winners in teams. So there we go. And look, final question about all this, Ian. I'll ask it of yourself. I was actually just looking. I mean, that's 4 players we've talked about there. 3, I think, are basically two of the 3 players are going to be out the door. I was having a look at all the players that we have let go so far this year, or sold or moved on. I'm just got Sam Lammers, Lundstrom, Barisic, Goldson, McCrory, Cifuentes, Ben Davies, Kieran Wright, Ryan Jack, Kamar Roof, and John McLaughlin. That is some serious money in terms of wages that we have moved out, and I think that has been quite an achievement from the backroom staff at Rangers this year, because it's clearly been one of the goals is to reduce the wage bill.
It has, yeah, and it's hard moving players on. Haven't had much success over the last year or two. Like we've kind of touched on it already with Cantwell and Hagi. There wasn't a queue to get these players. Matondo was one I think we'd all moved out a couple of weeks ago. There was just no interest there. The bigger point is, though, there's still quite a bit of deadwood in this squad. I'd still be looking to move on. Your Kieran Dowell is kind of prime example, but even beyond that, I was quite keen on Tav leaving this summer. I would keep Matondo in that conversation as well, despite how good he was against Ross County. Dessers has probably won me back round at this point. I think a few of us in the same boat. So,
yep.
But if he had moved on at the start of summer, if Matondo had, if Dowell had, if Tav had, I would have been kind of back in the club to move all those boys on, because we needed a refresh at this point. I think now we've got to a point where we've got enough bodies out that we should see at least 2 or 3 in over this next 2 days now. I think we're all starting to sweat a little bit, but we need this to happen. It's been too stale for too long. So yeah, credit to the board that they have managed to get so much of this. I'm not going to say failures out, but these players out.
Aye, but players that were earning a shockingly high wage. I think that's what we'll go with. Right, let's get talking into something a bit more positive here in terms of players coming in. There was a wee comment here. Kenny GBY says, our squad is fair thinning out. If we get a load of injuries, we are screwed. So let's talk about some of those players that are going to be incoming or potentially incoming, because there's been loads of rumours the last few days. Ross, I'll start with you on this one. Maybe an hour and a half before we came on, Twitter or X went absolutely mental with rumours, and it's one of those ones that started off, and within about 10 minutes it was, we're interested in this guy, to Rangers are in talks to bringing this guy up. I know that went out on our X feed as well, but the player in question is Nedim Bajrami. He's largely played in Italy. He moved to Empoli. And then he went on loan to Sassuolo, had a really good spell at Sassuolo, who then bought him for €5 million. Unfortunately, they were relegated to Serie B last year. Having watched a wee bit of Serie A, they weren't the best team, but he did get some minutes, scored, I think, the fastest ever goal at the Euros against Italy for Albania, if you remember that one. There was a wee TFA article that I was having a wee look at earlier on that sums him up. It says, Bajrami is an attack-minded midfielder who's comfortable as an 8 or a 10, or even from the wide spaces. He plays in a 10 with the freedom to drift into the half spaces or wide areas, or to get forward and break the line in the support of the strikers. His ability to play dangerous passes or crosses into the area, to dribble creatively in the final third, and to progress the ball effectively for his team stand out as strengths of his playing style. That sounds like a player Rangers could be doing with at the minute, Ross.
I think his reference is the Balkan Messi, isn't he? So a nickname like that, I'm all over it. Yeah, I really like this one. I think I was on last week, actually, when we were linked with Josip Brigalo, and I think it's quite a similar link. I think it's quite similar players there, so you can probably see what the club are looking at. I think this is exactly the type of player we need in that number 10 role. I think everything you described there in terms of being really effective in those pockets is something we need in those areas. I think, again, let's look at the weekend. I thought Tom Lawrence was really good at the weekend. I'm not convinced he's going to give you that through a whole season. I think you need some more quality in there to compete with him. Not saying that Tom Lawrence can't play in that number 10 role at times, but I think you need someone in there with a wee bit more quality, maybe a wee bit more versatility as well in terms of getting around the park, and looks like he can play on either side. So I really like this one, just like I liked Bricalo last week. I think this is one I'd love to see go over the line. You know, he's only 25 still, so if you're bringing him in with a loan with an option to buy, and he has a really good season.
There we go. Ross has got so excited about him, he's actually just frozen there. I'll ask a very similar question to yourself there, Iain. Obviously, you've had a wee look at Bajrami's player profile. Are you back, Ross?
I'm back, I think.
Well, yeah, I think you are back. Do you want to finish off what you were saying there? You were just talking about his age and that he's got a bit of a profile about him, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I think the age of him and, you know, the possibility of bringing him in on loan with an option to buy, I think there's a good chance that Rangers could develop the player still at the age he's at, and you can sell him on in the future. So, look, I think this would be a really good deal for us. I think you've seen with his Euros performances, and you also seen that season he had at Empoli when they got promoted, that there's a player of quality in there. I think his data over the last couple of years hasn't been as good, but he's in sides that are struggling in Serie A, and that's just what happens if you're playing in a poor side. It's very, very difficult for you to stand out. So you have to try and, you know, cover the data over a few years. And I think it's fair to say that when he was playing this side that were playing some good football, he was the kind of main creative outlet. And I think that's what we lack at times in that area. So yeah, I'd really, really like to see this one happen. I think it's a player of good quality, and it looks like the club have had this one sitting there, because as soon as the Todd Cantwell news has been, you know, announced today that he's making that move to Blackburn, we've pressed the button on Bajrami. So this is, I was talking about at the start of the podcast, I'm a little bit nervous by the lack of activity we've had the last couple of days, especially based on Clement's comments at the weekend. But this kind of move gives me confidence that Rangers have got things sitting there, and it's just time to press the button on these things now with all these players going out. So yeah, I really, really like this one, Kel. I think this would be a good bit of quality to our side, and someone that would come in and start, because I think we're lacking that. We don't need squad options now. We need starting 11 players. He looks like someone that would come in and start for us.
Well, that's it. I think there's enough wages being cleared off the decks for us now to be talking about players that 2 days of the window and we need to be bringing in starters. But look, some of the punters' comments on it. Andrew Cleland here says he sounds ideal. Mr. Smith, nice and positive, says this has Eros Grezda written all over it. Kean55 says Tom Lawrence has been great for the start of the season, but we need to get someone like Hagi or himself for Tom. And William01 says this is the exact type of signing I want. Iain, do we need to bring somebody in to replace Tom Lawrence? Is this the kind of profile of player that you think would do well at Rangers?
Yeah, I think even just as basic as a positional option in number 10, we need that. Obviously, the Hagi and Cantwell situation is well documented, but Tom Lawrence has had his injury issues since he came up here. He's not the kind of guy that can play 90 minutes most weeks by the looks of it. So if you're looking at having a guy come in to start as number 10 to then introduce Lawrence to a game with 20 minutes to go. It's a pretty nice balance. From what I'm seeing in Bajrami as well, he's got that flexibility that he can play a bit deeper. So whether it's him and Diomande beside each other, kind of pushing on together, I think is another option we've maybe created here. But no, it's he looks good. Again, I did watch the compilation video or two of him, and it's quite difficult to tell because he's playing in a league where we've kind of touched on it, that he's one of the poorer teams. Like, he's not the kind of guy that's going to get a start for an Inter Milan or AC Milan, but that's why we can get him. And again, age-wise, it's pretty perfect. It's quite similar to Czerny, really, in terms of he's got that top 5 division experience. He's got international experience, got quality, because you don't play at that level if you don't have quality. So, yeah, hopefully he can come in. Again, I'd be quite keen at being a loan with an option to buy, because I don't see the point of just loaning at this point. I mean, maybe we're at desperation stages and do just want that, but yeah, he seems like the kind of guy who's going to come in and be at first teamer, because there was a few comments right at the start of the pod there about how a few injuries and we're in trouble. I think central midfield is the kind of main fear for me. Like, if Diomande or Barron gets injured there, we are in trouble. So yeah, good option, good profile, and yeah, it's again kind of touched on what I said at the start. It seems pretty reliable sources are talking about it. It seems, I don't want to say nearly done, but it seems it could be quite close. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, and look, and we've seen Coppin works fast. He's with the Goldson thing. I think it was 2 days when Goldson went out. We already had Robin Proper to bring in. So that's why I'm maybe not as nervous as you, Ross, about incoming players. I've still got a bit of positivity, because that's what you said: one in, one out, and we must have stuff lined up in the background to say, right, you're going out, let's bring you in, but we'll see. But before we move on to the next one, wee interesting point here. Mr. Smith says Luke McCowan or Danny Armstrong would be cheaper and less risk. Are you a bit surprised that we haven't been linked with more with Scottish-based talent? Is it just a case of there aren't good enough players in our league to come in and fill these roles?
I think there's a lot of good players in our league. I think I've said that before. I think the pick of the bunch is Lennon Miller, isn't it? At Motherwell, I think we've seen that a couple of weeks ago at Hampden. He's a great player, and he's shown that. I think he got 2 assists at the weekend as well against Hearts. You know, he's only just turned 18, so there is quality in this league. Watson at Kilmarnock as well, but I don't think anyone in this league is good enough to come in and start for Rangers at the moment. Now, people might then say back, well, look at Conor Barron. But I think Conor Barron's taken advantage of the situation at Rangers, right? I think most people would have wanted it to be really that Conor Barron was coming in and he would have to kind of work his way into that side. But Conor Barron's done really well. He's just went, well, no one's in the way of me here. I'm taking this as my shirt, and fair play to him. And now it's his shirt. But I'm just not, I don't see enough quality in other areas of the Scottish League that I think, oh, you'll definitely come in and you'll definitely play. I think the one that early on in the window that a lot of people were convinced about was Lauren Shankland. He would have been the one, I think, in the league that people would have felt he is a better option than Cyril Dessers. But what Cyril Dessers has shown in the last couple of weeks that maybe isn't, right? And Lauren Shankland hasn't really started this season well either, and Hearts haven't. So, look, I think there's definitely quality within the league. I think it's always something that Rangers should be looking at. I think actually both Niels Coppin and Philippe Collant have now touched upon this, that will be part of the strategy moving forward. They will look at Scottish-based players, especially young emerging talent that can bring and develop. I'm just not sure there's many in there at the moment that I think would come in and start for us, and that's what we need. We don't need squad fillers at the moment. We need starting players. I don't see Luke McCowan, as good a player he is, or a Danny Armstrong coming in and starting for Rangers week in, week out. I just don't think they're at that level yet. Lennon Miller, I actually don't think he would start week in, week out for Rangers, to be honest with you. And Motherwell are going to want about 3 or 4 million for him. So that sounds like a bit of a risk for me. Don't know if we can afford to put that much money into someone that is going to come in and they're not really going to play. So yeah, I think there's more quality in other leagues for us, and I think that's where we'll focus on for starting players.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment. While we're on the subject of young Scottish players as well, I was going to ask this earlier on, but I'll fire it in here. It was about players like Lowry, Devine, King. I think King's been linked with a move to Salford City, Alec Lowry with a move to Carlisle. What would you be doing with these guys? Are you just happy to let these guys go? Are you at the stage where you just kind of accept that they're not good enough for Rangers, so what's the point in hindering their careers? Let them go on, or would you be keeping them about just in case they need to fill in, because our squad is quite thin at the moment?
It's a really tough one. I'm always very pro playing the youth guys. I think it's something as a club we've been not only terrible at a first team level, but you look at the kind of B team shambles over the last 2 or 3 years, and it is a bit of a disaster for those guys. Like someone like Leon King is a perfect example, because when he was like 16, 17, he was wanted by your Man United, your Newcastles, a lot of big teams were in for Leon King, and I'm pretty sure we had to give him a pretty healthy wage to keep him. And he's made a handful of starts ever since that point. There's no logical sense in my mind why they wouldn't go out on loan last season, this season. I know like they're maybe around for like that fourth, fifth choice slot, just in case things go horrendous injury wise, but it's just a total waste of a career. I know me and you, Kyle, spoke about this with the whole Bailey Rice thing, like at the weekend there, 3 or 4-0 up against Ross County. That is the dream scenario, to bring on a Bailey Rice for half an hour, just to get him introduced to the first team. Let us see what he can do, because the common theory is that he was more well thought of than Lennon Miller just 3 years ago, and yet you look at a different path that those have took since. No player at that age is going to want to join Rangers if you look at the history of guys that have done at that age. So we're really not setting ourselves up for the next sort of batch of players that will come through. So it's something we need to get better at as a club. At this point, I don't see Lowry making it here. I don't really see King making it here. Devine, I think, is even further behind those. So are you really going to just keep him around just to literally keep him around? I don't see a point in that. So they should be out on loan. They should be playing. If either of those three or more go out on loan and have an incredible 6 months, then we can absolutely look at revisiting that in January. Maybe they are worth an extra year's contract. Maybe they're worth bringing back into the fold. But my assumption here is they're going to sit and do nothing for 6 months if they stay here, and it's just absolutely no point. I get they're training every day, and maybe Bailey Rice is a bit different because he is a bit younger, or a good bit younger than the first three I mentioned. But we saw last was it in the winter and the summer that Lowry went to Hearts, didn't do too much. Devine had that spell at Motherwell, again didn't really get rave reviews as well. So if they're not going to cut it at those kind of teams, by now they're not going to cut it at us, which is a shame, but it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, again, a lot of comments in here agreeing with you. Keane55 says, for me, Lowry and Devine I would let go, but I keep Leon King because maybe even alone could do Leon the better. Stephen Sistunk says he also covers the Scottish quota. LT1872 says Rice should be coming on instead of Dow. Totally agree. And Mr. Smith says Alex Lowry is a real quality player, yet 4 managers have overlooked him. Must be an attitude problem. I think that's all fair enough. But listen, let's get back on to talking about players that have been rumoured to coming in, because that's what we all love chatting about is transfer speculation. Ross, I'll come to you in this one. There's been a couple of comments coming in saying we need a centre half. I know it's something that you have been banging on about, even to me when we've been going to games and stuff like that as well. The next player, Stanley Nsoki, who plays for Hoffenheim, didn't feature too much for Hoffenheim last year. The thing that everybody's saying about him on the socials is he looks like an absolute beast of a human being, like a monster of a guy. But most importantly for me, out of everything, he has won stuff. 2 French league titles, a Belgian league title, and he's basically won all the domestic cups in both those countries as well. What are your thoughts on a signing like this?
Yeah, when I first read this one this morning, actually, I really liked it. And then, you know, Rangers fans always do what they do, and they look up his injury record, and I seen that, and I thought, oh, here we go again. It's always the case, isn't it? We can never have anything. We can never have some joy. There's always got to be something that brings you back down to earth. But yeah, I think his CV is impressive, actually. I think what was encouraging as well was that he's already worked with the manager at Club Rouge, I believe, anyway. It looks like they were there at the same time. So I did, expect early on in the summer that you would see a couple of targets that Clement and his staff were aware of, and this looks like one that they would be willing to bring in. Fits as well. I said actually last week in the podcast before Ben Davis was out the door that we needed a centre-back, so I would probably argue we need 2 now, but this seems to be a Ben Davis replacement in terms of can play on that left-hand side, and yeah, looks like he's got a bit of stature about him, looks like he's got a real physicality as well, which is something you need in this league, and I think that is what always went against Ben Davis. Looked like a good footballer, comfortable with the ball at his feet, but when it came to the kind of the rough aspects of the game. He didn't really enjoy that side of it, and sometimes that's what you're going to face in Scotland. You're going to face big strikers, 6'4", 6'5" guys that are going to make it very difficult for you. And Ben Davies didn't like that. In fact, I think when he came on against Motherwell, he struggled with that, if I remember correctly. It was one of those games anyway where someone went too up front and he really struggled. So, yeah, look, I really like this move as well, Kyle. This one doesn't seem as nailed on as Bajrami, so we'll need to wait and see. I think there was some interest from Lille as well in League One, so I would imagine if that one's concrete, he'll probably go there, to be honest with you. But we certainly need someone in that area. Like we are desperate for a centre-back. Like someone needs to come in. And I'll say it again, like I said in my previous answer, it can't be a squad filler. Someone has to be coming in that is competing for those two slots. I know Suter and Proper look to be the two that the manager likes, but we need someone coming in that's right behind them and pushing them. We can't have someone like a Leon Balogun's status in the squad and just sitting there waiting for an opportunity. It needs to be someone pushing.
So you wouldn't be in favour of Nsiala featuring more for the first team, say?
I don't think Clinton Nsiala's ready. I said this when we signed him early on this summer. He didn't make a first team appearance for AC Milan. He's never played first team football, as far as I'm aware. So I don't know how he would ever come in and play for us straight away. I think Clinton Nsiala will take a bit of time. I think, to be fair to the manager, he came out and said that, didn't he? Like 2 weeks after he joined, that Nsiala and Igaman will take a bit of time. You're not going to see them straight away. They're going to take a bit of time to bed in. Looks like he's training with the first team all the time, but he's playing with the B team. But I thought he looked okay against Birmingham when we played in pre-season. That was a poor night overall for us, but I thought he was fine that game. I've heard that he's maybe been struggling a wee bit in the B team. He's not been great, but again, it just takes time to settle. I'm not going to completely write him off, but no, I don't think Clinton Nsiala is an option for us now. He should be someone, I think, in the same kind of mold as a Leon King, that you're sitting around 4th or 5th choice and you're hoping you get opportunities throughout a season. But we've seen Leon King in the last couple of seasons, you don't really get those opportunities at Rangers because it's so... I say this all the time, right? Rangers is not an easy club to come through at because the expectations are so high. So every manager that comes in, they're looking at the here and now. They're not really looking at development. And I think that's why you need someone above, like a director of football, that looks at the full picture and he looks at the end to end, and we try and find ways to integrate these players into the first team football. We don't really have that yet. And I know Clement's talking about the long-term plan, but that will take time to bed in. So I'm hoping we'll see Nsiala this season, but I don't think he can be one of those 4 options that we rely on. I think we need another couple in there to see us through.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I totally agree. I just saw a couple of comments coming in there about Nsiala sort of being that 4th central defender, but there's, for me, as you said, the manager's already come out and said he is a player for the future. He said that multiple times. But listen, the last player we'll talk about, Iain, I'll give this one to you. It's Brighton's Ecuadorian international, Jeremy Sarmiento, predominantly a left winger, was on loan at West Brom, and then at Ipswich, he obviously got promoted into the Premier League. The previous season, I know there's now rumours floating about that Burnley might be interested in him as well. He had 43 appearances across both clubs last year, scored 6 goals, 2 assists. What's your thoughts on this link? Another winger?
My first thought is that Burnley are really starting to piss me off, to be honest, with the whole Hannibal signing. They were linked with Whittaker now, and now this. So that's one off the Christmas card list. But no, he would have been a very exciting player. He's a guy that has played in the Premier League. He has a good profile again. I don't imagine we would have ever been signing him because he seems like his fee would be a lot higher than we would ever pay. So I think it would just an out-and-out loan for that one. But I think with Matondo staying, you've got Cortez there who should be back soon. I can't see another left winger coming in at this point. I think he can play either side, but again, Czerny's pretty nailed on for that right-hand side. So I would guess that Sarmiento was a kind of backup plan if Matondo had moved on. So probably unlikely at this point, albeit I think he would have been a really good signing. Just to touch back on that Nsiala point, though, I'm sure I said it on the pod just after he signed. I don't see why he would have came here if he was not going to get anywhere near the first team, because he got offered that contract from Milan, turned that down. So it might just be a case that he thinks he'll get in the first team eventually, but I wouldn't rule out him being that 4th choice slot, maybe kind of again, it's what I kind of want to see, but getting the last 20, 30 minutes of games when we're winning already, kind of sharing that centre-back spot a little bit. So I'm hopeful he does get a little more game time just so we can see what he's like. But yeah, the winger here I don't see happening, sadly, because I think he's a good player.
Yeah, that's just Big Mark Haley putting a good word in for us for Clinton and Ciala, saying that Rangers are a bigger club than AC Milan. But there we go. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. I'm not sure about the Ecuadorian winger from Brighton. He did score a pretty good goal earlier this week as well. So yeah, we'll see how that one pans out. But it'd be interesting, right? Quickly, just before we move on to the Old Firm at the weekend. Do you think we're going to do it, Ross? Do you think we're going to bring in enough players between now and the end of the window?
Oh, what a question. Do I think we'll bring in enough players? I think we need 3 or 4, to be honest with you. And I think what we've seen so far this window, I've not got a lot of faith in that, I'll be honest, just based on a lot of activity we've had. But the club have done a lot of good work in the last couple of days to get players out the door that I think we've all felt had to go. You were never going to get everyone out in the one summer, right? You were never going to clear the decks completely. That's just unrealistic. But I think the club have done really well to move out big salaries, and I think that gives us a healthy budget to play with. I'm just hoping we get enough in to see us through to January, to be honest with you. I think we're all realistic that we know this is going to take several transfer windows to shape this squad. I'm just wanting some options in, 3 or 4 options to boost the squad enough to get us there, and then go again in January. I think that will definitely be part of the plan. And I think the club will be lining up things to do in January as well if they can't get it done. And player statuses change at clubs based on what the start of the season's like as well. So that bit doesn't worry me. But yeah, we need some quality coming in. We do not have enough. A 6-0 win against Ross County is not going to convince me that we've got enough. It's not okay. We've not had a horrendous start to the season, but we didn't make the Champions League. You know, we went out at the first time I asked into Dynamo Kyiv. So I think we all knew at that point we were struggling for quality, and we've not really added a lot after that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, the question, do I think we'll do it? I think we'll bring in a couple of players. Whether we get the 3 or 4, I think we need. We'll just have to wait and see in that one, Kyle.
Yeah, that's it. Stevie Scotty here says, doesn't matter if we bring players in before the Celtic game, they won't play anyway. Clement will have to go with what he has already just now, which is fair enough. And a couple of comments here. Kenneth Elliott says 2 or 3 players, left back, centre back, and attacking mid. Left back, that's pretty interesting, given that I think Jefte's done okay so far this season. And Andrew Cullen says, be pleased if we get quality 10 CB and a number 6 by the weekend. Right, there's just a small matter of the first Old Firm game at the weekend. We've got 7 minutes left of the pod to talk about it. So, Iain, I'll come to you on this. What must Rangers continue to do that they did at the weekend? What must they bring into the Old Firm game? What were the good things that you saw at the weekend that we could use to get at Celtic?
I think there's a couple of things that need to be in like the blueprint here, and not conceding in the first 5-10 minutes is point number 1, and that it's been too common that we just shoot ourselves in the foot with an early goal against us, which often quickly becomes 2, and then the game's done. So that's what I cannot see again. I think we're all a bit wary of Tom Lawrence playing in this game. I think we all kind of think he's going to, but I don't know anyone that I've spoken to that would start him. So a big thing for me will be seeing that team sheet, and ideally seeing your Sterling, Barron and Diomande trio in midfield. I'll take a lot of confidence for that, just that midfield 3 alone, to be honest, because at least that's got the pressing in there. It's got just that bit of steel in there, I want to say, because we've seen it too much, like Lawrence sitting behind Dessers and the press doesn't work, and then Celtic play out through McGregor. We can just run through that exact script. We've seen it too many times at this point. So a few things like that we need to cover. The Tavernier, Maida, elephant in the room. We've all seen that too many times. We know Maida has his number. That is the kind of thing. I know we touched on a little bit on the pod on Sunday night. I think you guys did in the post-match as well. We saw Sterling sort of covering for Tav, or just sort of swapping positions, look like a couple of times. That to me has got to be one eye on that game, because I think if you've got Sterling against Maida, it's just a totally different ballgame. Someone that can match his pace, be aggressive with him. and just have a bit more confidence against him, because Tav just doesn't. It's fact at this point, but we all know that Tav is going to play. So if we move Tav centrally, if that's just something we do sort of in and out of possession, I think that can be a real help, because that comment is spot on. That first 20 minutes, Tav will be nervous. We'll be nervous watching Tav. If we can keep that solid, keep things 0-0 to even half time, that little seed of doubt that might start going in, because the fact is Celtic fans will be ultra confident that they're going to win this game. So the longer you can keep that tight, if we miraculously scored first, which we just don't do in this game, that would be groundbreaking. So I'd like that, to be honest. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm overly looking forward to the game. And if you offer me a draw right now, as like anti-staunch as that's going to be, I would snap your hand off for it.
Oh, definitely. The comments are definitely going to be coming in for you there, Iain. It's always a win against that lot. Look, there's quite a few comments coming in here, Ross, but it's a similar question to yourself. You know, what must we do better? But Robert Binney here says a fearless attitude would be a good start. CGM says, as always, they will come out and press us high. Bobman says we need to man Mark McGregor to stop the rhythm. Stevie Scotty 19 says what we must do against them. Don't, you know what, the bed, concede early, then concede the second straight away. Lawrence can't start. Be a lot braver and take the chances when they come. And a final comment from CGM55 here says we need Sterling at right back. Problem is we need Sterling in midfield. We even need Sterling at left back as well. What are your thoughts on those comments there, and what must Rangers do? Obviously, we've seen it this season. Celtic have had started games very, very fast. That is something we have to watch out for at the weekend, surely.
Yeah, definitely. When you're going to Parkhead, you know that's how the game's going to start off. You know Celtic are going to come out flying, and they'll try and win the game the first 15, 20 minutes. They always do. So Rangers have got to try and match that. It's going to be difficult, like you said. Celtic have started the season strong, and I think if we're all honest, I think we all know that Celtic are a better team than us at the moment, right? So Rangers are going to have to go there, and they're going to have to try and make it difficult for them in certain ways. I think we definitely have to match the intensity. And I think what we've got now, and I think Conor Barney, that is quite important for this. I think he's definitely the type of midfielder you would want in a game like this. So he obviously can't do it on his own, right? So how do you put people around him to help out? I think Mohamed Diamande is a player that can dig in as well. But I think you definitely need to have Sterling in this game, right? I don't know where he's going to put him. I don't think he's going to put him at right back, because I can't see him dropping the captain for this game. But is he going to really remove a Tom Lawrence from this? I'm not sure. But I think everyone in the support would feel that you need to have a Dujon Sterling in and amongst this team to bring that intensity. But what I actually really want from Rangers, right, it's the first Old Firm of the season. They've had a really, really good result last week against Ross County. If you can't get confidence after a 6-0 win, then you're never, ever going to get confidence, to be honest with you. So I want them to go to Parkhead, and I want them to play with a bit of freedom, right? It's the first Old Firm of the season. No one is expecting Rangers to go here and get a result. No one, right? Everyone has already got Celtic with the 3 points. Let's be honest, you're going to read that all up until the game. All the predictions are going to be that Celtic are going to win this game, right? I want this team to go there and play with a bit of freedom, just play with a bit of confidence and go for it. It's the first Old Firm of the season. There's plenty of time to reduce the deficit in a league campaign after this game, right? They've already written you off. I think Tom Lawrence spoke about that in the press the other day, that he feels that, you know, the team has already been written off. So take advantage of that. There's no real expectation on you. Go for it. Play with a bit of intensity, play with a bit of aggressiveness, because we've not had that at times when we went to Parkhead, and we've kind of been beat before that. You know, you beating the tunnel, right? So that's what I want to see. I think you've got a couple of players in there at the moment that we're excited about. Mohamed Diamande is one of them. I think Jefte is another one. I think he will cause a lot of problems down that left-hand side. Absolutely. I think the way Matondo and Jefte work together, I think Alistair Johnson will have a difficult game. There's no doubt about it. He struggled against Fabio Silva on that left-hand side. So I think he'll struggle against Rabbi Matondo and Jefte as well. And you've also got a striker at the moment, Cyril Dessers, that is scoring goals and is actually starting to show, I think, a lot of the things that we love in a striker that have frustrated us at times, where he's not dilly-dallying when he's getting chances. He's ruthless. That first goal at the weekend is ruthless. He's in, he doesn't hesitate, and he strikes it, and it's a great finish at the bottom corner. You're going, when you've got a striker like that and in form, it gives everyone else confidence. So I want Rangers to go there and take advantage of there not being any expectations. I want them to go there and go for it. Look, everyone thinks you're going to lose the game, so just go for it. Don't show any fear. Don't sit off them. The thing we always see at Parkhead with Rangers teams in the past is it takes one pass through the midfield and they're at our back four, right? Let's going to let that happen, all right? Let's try and identify a way to stop that and negate it. If that's just being a bit more compact in midfield and forcing them wide, fine, because Celtic don't want to play that way. They want to play through the middle and they want to play quick and they want to get runners off. So you've got to go there. You've got to try and make it difficult for them. And if you do that, like Iain said, stay in the game for as long as possible. Their support's going to get in their back, right? And they're going to get frustrated because they're expecting to go there and win 3 or 4, right? So you've got to try and use that against them as well. So I've kind of convinced myself that we're going to win 3-0 now. So if the team can have that same confidence going into it on Sunday, that would be great.
Yeah, I will absolutely take that all day long. And interestingly enough, I was expecting this, but maybe not as quickly. Mr. Smith says Connor Barron should be the Rangers captain. Dick Advocat made Fergie the captain. There we go. Connor Barron for Rangers captain already. But I think you both touched on it there. I think that will be a very, very key battle. The fact that Barron's got experience at Parkhead, I think that will be fascinating watching him and McGregor in the centre of that pitch, and hopefully something that they've not faced before. But listen, that's us just over the hour mark. I don't know how we've done it, but we've managed to get through that full agenda. Just want to say thank you to everybody tuning in, watching. Thank you to both of my guests. We will be back on Sunday at 8:30 with Craig. I'm not sure who, as always, I'm not sure who else is on the podcast. I just know who's hosting it. But we'll be there, win, lose or draw. So make sure you tune in to the guys. But just again, thanks to everybody for tuning in, watching and listening. And we will see you all again soon.